Governor of the Apex Bank, Olayemi Cardozo, disclosed this during a meeting with the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mohamed Abubakar, and the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar Kyari, at the ministry's headquarters in Abuja on Wednesday. Cardozo says this contribution aims to improve food prices, production, driving down prices, and addressing food inflation. Well, we have a Rise Business anchor, Boason Omofaye, joining us now. Always good to have you with us, Ms. Boason Omofaye.
It's a good Thursday.
Welcome, welcome.
Good
well,
afternoon.
Access Holdings, there's a lot going on there. They announced the return of Mr. Agric, the CFR, to the bank as its non-executive chairman. What's your thought on that?
After 10 years. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's a return of the mark.
The return of the mark.
In the manner of speaking. But I think, and I said this some time ago, every bank, or every institution is looking how to retool and leverage a good leadership and folks at the top. At this particular point in time, if you look at the footprints of Access Bank and the creation of what you call the modern day Access Bank, or the 21st century Access Bank between the late Herbert and Agric. And I think this is also one of the best decisions that the board has taken. Remember, the strides that Wigwe, Herbert, the late Wigwe of blessed memory, the strides he was making were global in nature. And he knows the beginning of the modern Access Bank and the Access Holding and the whole enterprise that has become Pan-African and global in nature. So to that effect, you need someone to also take that role and lead from the front and lead the rest of the soldiers, if you get what I'm trying to say. You need someone who has the same stature. What I mean stature, in terms of the boardroom, in terms of the market, in terms of the industry, in terms of the economy, in terms of the global understanding of what banking is all about. You don't become Access Bank with footprints in South Africa, making big deals in Eastern Africa, to Central Africa, going to Paris, going to France, go to the UK and elsewhere, and just decide and just, look, we're just going to do it. The global banking space, international finance, they've crossed the borders in a manner of speaking, and doing multi-billion dollar deal on behalf of not just the bank, but across clients and others around Africa. So to that extent, you need someone who knows the organization, who has worked with key individuals within the organizations over the last 10, 20 years plus, to come back and provide that further steps, what you call the future forward of that organization. And I think that's what they just did. And since he left Access, by the way, since he retired from Access, he has remained within the corridors of finance, investment, and other things. He's run philanthropy, he's run a foundation out there. So he remained very close to the markets, close to the banking industry, close to international finance, such that his figure coming back into the boardroom will command, among other executive and non-executive directors of Access Holdings and the entire subsidiaries, as the guy that we know, the man that we've always known, the pair of which Herbert was one and he's the other, like a pair of shoes. So he's stepping into the shoe that always fit him. He's not new to the system. He was part of the making of Access as a group itself. So it's no brainer for him to get in there and say, look, I'm going to just pick up the mantle from where Herbert Wigwe unfortunately left it off, which is untimely demise. So I think it's just a square peg in a square hole for Access Holdings. It's going to be positive for the bank and for the group, as far as the shares are concerned, as far as investors and shareholders are concerned. I'm sure by the time it goes to the annual general meeting, I'm sure the shareholders will say, look, it's just a welcome back. He's always been, Access Bank had been his baby and that of Herbert Wigwe over the years and decades. So I think this is a good one. It's confidence not only for the shareholders, but also for those who are creditors who hold the bonds of Access Bank globally, as well as depositors of the bank, as well Ike had always been in the corridors and is back in the corridors with a cup of tea and coffee in his hands, and is still taking that command and respect that Access Bank have always had within Nigeria. And within the banking sector, I'm sure other banks would also be looking at what is going on in Access Bank and say, look, these guys want to remain solid. They remain solid. There's a future. The future is going to be a little bit more tough. Remember, the economy is changing, globally speaking. You have the intra-Africa trade. Locally, the central bank is looking at whether banks will start recapitalizing. Is there going to be further mergers and acquisitions or consolidation within the Nigeria space? And which other? Remember, there's a blueprint that Herbert Wigwe was executing. They were to do massive deals this year, which was to be consolidated, I think, at the end of this first quarter or into the second quarter, in which they were to pick the Standard Chartered subsidiaries in about 6 African countries. That multi-million-dollar deal is still on the table. So, who will be speaking with the Standard Chartered folks here at the headquarters in London, for example? They need someone who had always been part of Access Bank to continue to say, look, unfortunately, sorry, we lost Herbert, but I am here. I'm the guy you've always known. I've always been part of this enterprise, the group that's got Access, and I can take this further. I can take it from here further. I can lead it exactly to where Herbert would have led it. So that is where, and I think it's just going back to your toolbox, if I can use that, and pick that tested instrument, that tool that you've used before, and you just go back to it. That's why I said retired but never tired in the local parlance.
Indeed. At the end of the day, experience is key.
Oh yeah, no, you can buy that off the shelf.
Indeed.
You need that experience. You need that goodwill. You need that pedigree. You need someone who has related with the regulators in the past, whether it's the SEC, whether it's the central bank, whether it's PENCOM, any other. You need someone who has related with political authorities in this country, in a manner of speaking. You need someone who was related with presidents of this country, political leaders across various social strata of the country, in a manner of speaking. So someone is a right tool to keep this bank and institution and the group on track and into a greater future.
All right. In other news, here's Technologies and Obong Idiong's appointment. What are your thoughts there?
A couple of things are taking place. Oh, by the way, South Africa, Access Bank also announced yesterday that they put a new Shabalala as they have a new CEO for the Access Bank in South Africa. They are also looking at how things are happening, and they brought in this gentleman who's also very known in South African banking space, and they took him from one of the financial institutions and brought him to Access Bank of South Africa, which is one of their latest subsidiaries, standalone in South Africa, which was done just about a year or so ago. But again, to come to the Hess Holdings, if you look at the structure, which Tony Lumelu and is running as well, is also to begin to spread, not just in financial services, doing a foundation and doing entrepreneurial support across Africa, and then into technologies. Look, and into power. And oil and gas. And these are the critical sectors of the emerging global economy. And you can't run away from technologies. Whether you're talking about data centers, or you want to build fiber optics, and you want to scale up the entire network of whether enterprise solutions for businesses in Nigeria and across Africa. Look, the technology is the future. As we say, data is the latest oil anywhere in the world. And anyone who sits on that understands how much value you have. I'm sure you can see the TikTok back and forth. See, you can't be a government seriously anywhere, or a business person anywhere in the world right now, in particular for Africa, where we're looking at about 1.2 billion odd people, and we need data, we need technology, we need to enhance solutions to manufacturing, to agriculture, to education, to healthcare, to drug manufacturing, to research, to virology, to everything else in between, to air transportation, logistics, for example, moving things from one place to the other, without putting technologies at the heart of that. So having done so well in financial services, whether it is banking, registrar business, insurance, and what have you, oil and gas, that technology requires someone who understands the family, and I call it the Hess Holdings family. Having experience in banking, now you need technology in banking, so it's got that experience. Then it's been from other parts of the Tony Elumelu's dynasty, business dynasty, and you put it all that together, and now you now bring that to core technology. So he sees the entire family business, Tony's business, in the manner of speaking, and the Hess Holdings business, and he will be able to do that. And again, he's a young man. Of course, Tony himself prided himself in surrounding himself with young individuals. I'm not sure I've ever seen anyone around 70 or so. He keeps, that's the group he keeps. He loves old people, by the way. He takes knowledge from those who are much older. But he'll get folks who can roll up the sleeves, as it were, with him and get down and get the job done. Folks who understand the modern world in which we find ourselves. So to that extent, he's putting another round peg in a round hole, as it were, within the business group.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Central Bank of Nigeria. They've allocated that 2.15 million bags of fertilizers that I think it's valued over 100 billion naira to the Ministry of Agriculture. Like, amidst this food insecurity that we're having, this is some good news.
Yeah, we need all hands on deck. If you check the social media, everyone's whether it's that direct intervention or not a direct intervention, where did the central bank get 100 billion naira worth of fertilizers? And what have you? Was it bought at the open market? Was it imported? Whatever it is. But who has money right now? I think the central bank always have money because they keep our money and the government's money. So everybody's money is central bank's money. They print the money. So to that extent, the central bank has deep pockets. The government is looking for 500 billion naira, 500 billion, to recapitalize the Bank of Agriculture. Bank of Agriculture had to be the one doing some of these interventions. But this bank had been so weak and ineffective over the years, Bank of Agriculture, which ought to intervene within the entire agricultural value chain, from farmers to everyone down the line. But it hasn't really been up and doing. So the news was that they're restructuring the management and the board and to make it more effective. And if they can raise 500 billion and if they need trillions of naira in that bank, that will relieve the central bank from doing some of this. Because the Bank of Agriculture should be the one to work with international organizations, maybe OCP Group of Morocco, or those who are getting fertilizer from other parts, rather from Russia, from Ukraine, from elsewhere in Africa, China, whatever, to get fertilizers to the farmers. Do the farmers need fertilizers? Yes, they do. Will this be judiciously and resource be put to use? Let's see the mechanism that the Ministry of Finance will put in place to ensure that the right farmers get it, that it does not become politicized, it doesn't end up in some folks, directors or PAMSEC's warehouses in various villages and towns and elsewhere, and don't end up in the open market being sold to farmers at the end of the day. We've had this as a recurring issue, so I don't begrudge those who has some measure of doubt as to where would these fertilizers ended up. Of course, if you know the history of fertilizer distribution in Nigeria during the military era and all of that, if you follow that as a business journalist, you understand that fertilizer had always been the chop, in a manner of speaking, for the big boys in the Ministry of Agriculture and the various agencies under the Ministry of Agriculture. But the central bank, I hope that they have that mechanism to monitor that each bag of this fertilizer gets to the hands of the farmers that need it right now to produce more food. We're talking about insecurity. So who gets these fertilizers and will they get to the farms to be used? Remember, fertilizer became such a big issue with the Russia-Ukraine war, such that we got to go begging for fertilizers. Now, Dangote set up his own fertilizer here in Lagos, at the backwaters of Lagos, and is doing some exports and having some locally. I think this should have been perhaps purchased from Dangote, which will be keeping the money in the house and dividend in house. So I would love that if it's all local. But that means that we also the government need to ramp up very quickly on its own fertilizer company. that we have that are existing somewhere here in the South. We need to get fertilizers up and running locally. It will create jobs, it will help the farmers, but there's still a whole lot more. But I think the central bank just threw his own a widow's mite, as it were. 100 billion is not a mite.
Widow's mite, and that will not be the last interventionist from the central bank. On that note,
not most likely.
Yeah,
not most likely. But I think the fiscal authorities need to be a whole lot more. I want to see the Ministry of Agriculture doing most of these things with the agencies and parastatals within the Ministry of Agriculture. And I haven't really seen that up and front as it should be. And I'm personally, as a business journalist, I'm not too enthused or happy with the Ministry of Agriculture. Not just the current one, the immediate past and
all right.
before.
Okay. On that note, Boason, Omofaye, I'd like to thank you for your thoughts on this.
Thank you. Thank you
It's
both
always
for
a pleasure
having me
to have you with us.
on your show.
Good to
Thank
have
you.
you.
I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.